I am Anshul Khandelwal, your moderator for the day. Uh, Very excited to host this extremely interesting panel on food tech and grocery today. And I'd like to start off by thanking IIMKAN, IIMK Alumni Network for organizing this. Um, Also, just wanted to start with saying that IIMKAN has launched a COVID relief fund, which is ending tomorrow. So it will be really great if you guys can contribute to the cause since tomorrow is the last day. Um, Great. So, what we'll do today here is talking about a very exciting set of industries, which is food tech, cloud kitchens, and grocery. We are going to talk about how has COVID impacted these industries, and primarily focus on the change in opportunities rather than brooding over the fact that COVID has brought in a lot of gloom and doom around the world. We'll focus on the positivity and figure out what are the changes in the consumer behavior, what are the trends which are going to come up, and how is this going to shape up the industry in the future. So let me start with a very quick round of introductions. What I'll do is I'll introduce each one of my panelists very quickly and then hand it over to them to introduce themselves and tell their story about how did they build their career and what are they actually doing right now in the industry. So let me start off by introducing Yogesh. So Yogesh has about a decade of experience. He's from PGP 13, uh, experience across FMCG, healthcare in J&J, Mondelez in FMCG, and then shifting from there directly to a very new and challenging startup world with Rebel Foods as the VP of Sales and Distribution. So welcome Yogesh to the webinar.
Hey, thank you, Anshul, and thank you, Imkan, for giving us the opportunity to share our experience. And last 45 days in April 2020 was, a different month. And I
Yeah,
hope
yeah,
May would be different than the April. I think everyone is hoping around that with different colors, green, orange, and no, red is painting the country. So a little bit about me. I'm very standard career before IIM and after IIM. An engineer and software engineer joined IIM, and from there I took
Hmm.
MNC sales role. Joined Johnson and Johnson in healthcare, and then moved to FMCG in Johnson and Johnson, and then moved to Mondelez. So selling chocolates, soaps, contact lenses, biscuits, and so on and so forth. And after that, I realized that
Hmm.
let's do something interesting. Kind of monotony sets in when you do something for a little longer, and that's where I decided to join Rebel Foods. Uh, a difficult call, and I think a difficult call when work closely a decade in a large
Hmm.
MNC setup. That
Yeah,
how you leave that cushion of
yeah,
5 day week, no weekend work, and then you suddenly move into a stormy startup where
yeah,
you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and probably in Rebel Foods we live by the hours, right?
yeah.
Dinner, lunch, and so right from a weekly and monthly setup to an
Huh.
hourly setup, it been
Hmm.
but I must say I think it was a great decision, because whatever I learned in the last 1 year, probably I could not have learned in cumulative of 3-4 years in
Yeah,
FMCG.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's been great. Thank you for having me.
Great.
And
Great.
I think I hope
I'll come
we'll have
back to you.
interesting discussion and probably learn from other panelists.
Great, great. Thanks a lot, Yogesh, for the introduction. I'll come back to you and understand a little more about your story later. Let me just introduce Ashish. Ashish Lingamneni is AVP Marketing at Swiggy. Again, PGP 13 has about a decade of experience in marketing, and I'm sure all of you would have seen the great work Swiggy does when it comes to experience marketing, branding, etc. And Ashish is responsible for it. He's been with Johnson and Johnson. He's been with Ola. He's been with Swiggy. So very interesting journey from a healthcare typical MNC company to a Ola like startup, which is considered to be very, very aggressive, moving on to Swiggy, which is the darling of the food tech industry right now. So, welcome, Ashish. I'll hand it over to you to introduce yourself a little more in detail and correct me if I'm wrong with my understanding of your career.
So thanks, Anshul. Hi, everyone. It's great to see, obviously, a few familiar faces. Anshul, Yogesh, and I are all batchmates from the same batch. So I'll just run you through and give you a quick overview about my career as well. I currently head brand marketing at Swiggy, which spans across essentially growing the overall Swiggy brand while also looking after some of the new offerings that we've been creating before from before COVID, as well as some of the new stuff that is been reactive as well. And we'll talk more about that as we get into the overall session. Uh, Interestingly, Yogesh and I both joined J&J, I think, for probably for different reasons. The small side story there was I actually had a PPO from Colgate Palmolive, and the only reason, and I was allowed to sit for J&J much later, as in maybe some of the recent batches can probably relate, but I was only allowed to sit much later. The primary reason I actually chose J&J was that it had 5-day working, and I did a fairly strenuous internship at Colgate Palmolive in the summers of Delhi, and I was like, I definitely need 2 days off. Curiously, much later, 4 years after into J&J, I realized I actually wanted to work a lot more. So I then moved to Ola and pretty much worked every weekend for the next 2 years. So interesting, as in career decisions per se, I guess. But yeah, that was 2015 or so when I moved to Ola, and about 2 years later, Swiggy came up, and it was an increase in responsibilities. It's slightly, as in for me at that point, an interesting sector where food is a little more evocative, a little more interesting than at least I felt
Yeah.
mobility. So
Yeah.
that was the switch I made. So yeah, that's about me.
Got
And
it.
back to Anshul.
Great. Great, Ashish. Thanks a lot for the introduction. I'd like to introduce Tanu from BigBasket. Again, she's from PGB 12, but has about a decade of experience in product and technology, and has been with BigBasket for about 5 years. Again, BigBasket is one of the pioneers in the food industry, and primarily in the grocery space, as everyone knows. So it'll be great to hear from you, Tanu, about your journey and your story about how did you build your career, interesting career at BigBasket.
Thanks, Anshul. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for inviting me. In terms of my journey, I joined City Analytics from campus, and I then transitioned to product management, which happened because at that point of time, about 2012, the whole consumer, there were a lot of things happening in this consumer internet sector, and I really wanted to be part of it. So it was I wanted to do that, and then I had to find a way to get into this sector. So that is the story, and that's a story of change, and also of learning of how you move between different companies and industries, because I made a lot of mistakes in the beginning, and I think some of the decisions in the end were good decisions to land me here. So we can talk about that later. And right now I am looking after the customer experience at BigBasket on the product end. So all the app site experience comes under me.
Got it. Cool. Thanks a lot, Tanu. I'll get back to you to understand a little more about your story. Lastly, let me just introduce myself, your moderator. Hi, I'm Anshul. I'm from PGB 13. Again, pretty much like all of these guys, we're actually from the same batch, coincidentally. And I have about a decade of experience in marketing, revenue growth, category, etc. So I started off my career with 3M, worked there for about 6 months as a trainee, and realized that I cannot work for big companies. And I instantly quit after 6 months and went back to my earliest startup and the founder, where I was working pre-IIMKAA. And I joined as part of the founding team of Bluestone, which is an online jewelry portal, back in 2011, when consumer internet was just about exploding in India. So my career has primarily been only around small startups, mid-stage startups, and late-stage startups. And most of them have been failures also. So it's a very, I do not have a lot of laurels in terms of the companies I've grown, because all of them have been very, very challenging. But I think that's the beauty of startup ecosystem, that it makes you learn so much. So I was heading marketing for Bluestone, then I was heading marketing for Upgrad, which is a tech company. I was heading marketing for a content discovery company called LBB. Then I was heading marketing for a failed startup, not startup, but food tech company called Food Panda. And then now I pivoted the business to a new foods business called Ola Foods. So yeah, that has been my journey. I think all of us have had interesting careers, and it'll be good to talk about it sometime in detail later. Cool. So let me just quickly get started with the agenda of the session, which is on trends and opportunities and changes which COVID has brought about in these segments. Let me just quickly start with you, Ashish, in understanding firstly a little bit about, if you could just give a broad overview of what does the food tech industry look like, which are the players, what is the size of the industry, how is it growing, and what are the changes and impact which COVID has brought about in the last 1.5, 2 months on the industry.
Sure. Cool. So, as in, if you look at the pre-COVID world, we broadly were a two-player industry, especially after, as an Anshul mentioned, Food Panda, which got acquired by Ola, Uber Eats got acquired by Zomato. So, essentially, a two-player industry. We obviously have a few aggregators. We have a few more vertically structured players like eFit, Rebel Foods, etc. But broadly, it is a 3 million, as in the way we measure the industry is in two ways. So it's a overall about a $4 billion annual run rate industry before COVID. As an industry, we were at just about 3 million orders per day. So probably in terms of frequency, a very, very high frequency industry where users, a large segment were using us very, very frequently, but we're also seeing inroads into a few slightly more reluctant segments. I think no surprises, but obviously COVID has had a fairly large impact in terms of the volumes that the industry is seeing. Curiously, I think it's obviously the impact COVID has differed geographically. So in Western markets, you actually see some amount of an increase in terms of ordering. In markets like China, there was a very strong trough that was seen and a rebound that was seen. In India, we're obviously in the middle of the trough and yet remains to be seen. So order volumes are, as in, anywhere between about 70 to 75% down across different cities. It's largely been driven by two factors. One is obviously regulatory problems with respect to, as in supply, as in which basically means restaurants not being able to open, and also a flight of consumer demand where consumers are a lot more anxious in terms of what they are, in terms of their willingness to order, and there's a fairly large preference towards in the cooking food at home, and obviously groceries kind of like become a necessity then. So that's currently the status of the industry. We've obviously done a bunch of things we'll talk about in terms of what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. Coming from the food industry, I think the food industry has had the highest impact amongst all industries, given the importance of food in the lives of people and amount of safety, quality, and hygiene people expect from food. So it's a definite hit on the overall industry, and I think Yogesh will be able to add a little bit more. Yogesh, so from your perspective, given that you're not a marketplace, but actually on the other side of the business, which is the supply, how has COVID impacted the business? And also, I think it'll be interesting for you to talk a little bit about cloud kitchens, and because it's something which not a lot of people understand, that how has this new thing come up in the last 1.5 years in the food industry. So good to understand that industry, and how have you been tackling with the issues COVID has brought about.
Great. So I think largely it's a kitchen. I mean, the cloud is name given by, I mean, someone in Silicon Valley, but largely it's a kitchen. Earlier it used to be called dark kitchen and then cloud kitchen, but largely it's a kitchen where the food gets
Ghost
made.
kitchen also. It's also called ghost kitchen.
Yeah. I mean, I think then people settled that cloud kitchen looks fancy and doesn't give a negative connotation, but largely it's a kitchen. And I think cloud kitchen, as the practically it says that there's no dine-in. You just make the food and then it goes out to the customer in whatever way. And I think Swiggy and Zomato, everyone knows that it gets divided. So I think the way we see as this industry, so like Ashish mentioned, it's food tech is part of about making it democratized in form of demand and accessibility. Food tech is also has a backward connotation where how the technology get involved in making the food. If you see most of the restaurant or most of the restaurant chain like McDonald's, Subway, they're still the same name. While if you go to any other brick and mortar industry, Walmart is getting replaced by Amazon, or probably in India BigBasket. Lot of so digitization has come a lot way in other industry, but I think kitchen is still where a lot of people move their hands and make the food. So I think food tech will come in big way, because I think we solve one part of the food tech, which is hyperlocal delivery, but a lot of part of food tech which is making in the food. Probably I think we'll see a lot more traction there. What I think Ashish really said, that post COVID, suddenly marketing and communication is all about safety, hygiene, and how good we are taking care in terms of our employees or our food. The contactless food, contactless delivery, and everything is going in the way, the communication to reassure the consumers that whatever you are doing, you are making it safe. And I think as Ashish has said, that people started cooking at home, and a lot of people I think will become master chef by the end of this goes over. I think people are experimenting a lot about food at home
Yeah.
rather than experimenting outside the food
Yeah.
at home. So I think that will be a great change we
Yeah.
are seeing. So safety, hygiene, and communication around safety and hygiene will get prominence. Then probably discount prices and other thing which pre-COVID era probably was thinking about restaurant
Got
or
it.
food industry.
Sure, sure. Tanu, coming to you, Big Basket, what a month it has been for Big Basket. I think it has been at the top of the news headlines everywhere because the most exciting space to be in right now, where everybody's after Big Basket to get things delivered. Could you tell us a little bit more about what went behind all of this? How was the experience? And also, in general, about how is grocery different from the other two food businesses, and what are the challenges and issues you see in this large industries and the opportunities you see?
Yeah, okay. So, yes, last month has been extremely exciting and crazy for us. So, COVID has been a cloud with silver lining in some sense for BigBasket. So, although it posed a lot of challenges, but those are good kind of challenges because those are the challenges you want to solve for. You want to solve for high growth. You want to solve for more people coming to your site. So, so a lot of so our traffic grew up. We had 6x traffic. Our old customers were coming back. And,
Got it.
trust me, we've run so many programs asking customers to come back and all sorts of you guys would
Nothing
know.
worked.
And the results from there and the results from here, like all strategy around new customer acquisitions, old customer retention will now change because those things are organically happening for us now. People are more receptive of buying groceries online, buying their fruits and vegetables online. So that is a great change for us. But what it also means is that although we can probably optimize some of our marketing spends, that effort and that money will now go into building our operational efficiency, because as soon as we can service all of this high demand, we are on a good place. It also means COVID also means for us is that there's a very high amount of risk as well. As soon as if one of our employees falls sick or there is any news of this sort, we stand to suddenly risk a lot of business. So a lot of focus is now turning on to the employee safety in terms of in those sorts of initiatives. So like Yogesh mentioned, it is a lot of it is about communicating to the customer about what is happening, and a lot of on ground effort about making these change happen overall. So those are the things that are going on.
No, I agree. I think it has been a demonetization moment for Big Basket, and I think a lot of other grocers, even the local grocers or neighbor grocers, for them it has been like a demon moment. And I think it'll be really great to see, the kind of push the grocery has been seeing, and the interest from other players. And just to take it forward from here a little bit, Ashish, I'd like to understand from you, and given that Big Basket has been struggling with all of this, serving the demand and being the largest player in the industry, what made Swiggy sort of enter grocery and think about it from a opportunity point of view, both in short term and long term? If you could just throw some light on it.
Sure. So for us, I think groceries is obviously in play even before, well before COVID. We had something called Swiggy stores in 2 cities for probably the last 8 to 9 months, and we were still in the process of essentially finding a business model that really made sense for us, both from a unit economics point of view and more importantly from a customer experience point of view. So we had essentially worked with a marketplace model largely, and in both of these cases, but we're also essentially exploring whether owned inventory made sense for us or not. Given the times we were in, and the fact that customers were looking for relief in the form of grocery delivery in any form, right, irrespective of what levels of CX are really provided, we felt it was important for us to try and extend some of the capabilities we had. We had the stack already ready. We had feet on the ground. We felt that from onboarding standpoint, we could actually kind of like onboard enough players quickly. There was a strong need. So, for instance, we actually reached out to consumers, and we got about 13,500 recommendations from consumers of grocery stores they wanted listed on our platform. So at the end of it, the demand and need were there. In terms of, so that's the short run, obviously. In terms of long run, we'll still have to one, see how the overall online grocery industry evolves over the next few months. Uh,
Mm,
Consumers were obviously wired in BigBasket and
mm,
as in the morning delivery apps were
mm,
the normals at
mm,
that point in time. Let's see
mm,
what's in store, and we'll obviously kind of like take a call. For now, we just like to do right by consumer and by our as
mm,
in employees and
mm,
stakeholders and see what's
mm.
possible, keeping our
So
shareholders and investors in mind as well. So.
great. I think it's been exciting to see the nimbleness and the agility of companies. I think all of your companies, and especially Swiggy, for example, with starting off with such a big vertical in such a short time. So, just a last question on it. Do you see Big Basket as a friend or a foe at this moment?
Honestly, at this point in time, the supply of online delivery is much lower than the demand, right?
Yeah,
When demand is
yeah,
constrained and we're
yeah.
fighting over the same consumer is when we probably will become full.
Good.
But at the same time, there's obviously ways of like, as in I think BigBasket is already working with us in different formats. We've explored
Got it.
conversations at least in terms of delivering from BigBasket
Yeah,
stores.
yeah.
So yeah, there's honestly enough out there in my opinion for lots of
Yeah.
as in earlier foes to become friends in this new
Yeah,
world.
yeah. I think COVID has brought a lot of companies together in solving for industry level problems rather than solving for your own personal problems as such. Yogesh, again, food tech, food brands, and I'm in the same industry is very, very interesting. And also intimidating at the same time that dining out is going through severe stress and is not going to recover at least for the next, let's say, 6 to 12 months. How do you see a food brands business behaving after this, and what are the opportunities you see going forward, which are new or which are rather COVID induced in that sense, which open up a new area of work for Rebel Foods?
Yeah, so, as you rightly said that going out and socializing, will take a lot of time. I think
Mm,
a lot of people are talking about stages and phases, and I think probably they'll be coming in two. First, it will come to normalcy, and then
mm,
probably we'll talk about recovery. So I
yeah.
think to reach about normalcy will gonna take a lot of time because I think we are also trying to adapt like
Mm,
every other brand. So I think as a food industry, probably meal kits is one thing which a restaurant
mm,
brand can look at because you are getting you're not very sure about the cooked food. So probably you wanna cook
mm,
at home and can you serve consumers by giving them DIY kit so that they can
mm,
cook at home and get the same experience. So probably I
mm,
think that is one opportunity area which probably a food brand can think of. While we also see that there might be some amount of consolidation happens in the restaurant sector because not everyone may have wherewithal to survive for 6 to 12 months, as you said, till the time the consumers comes and uh, have the food. So I think a lot of players mix may change. I see Oberoi started doing home delivery. So five stars is
yeah.
coming and joining the home delivery while probably think about those the roadside bhaji walas and vada pav walas. I think the
Mm,
safety which probably as an Indian we used to
mm,
discount from safety and
mm,
hygiene point of view. I mean all of us
yeah.
might have had those roadside eating joints. Probably I think that will take a different form of communication from now
Mm,
on. Probably people would be very less experimental in that sense. So
mm,
I think it will be very interesting and a different word. I think probably 6 months from now. And one thing
mm,
I think as a brand we have to overwork on making the safety,
mm,
hygiene, and everything. And communicate as well to the consumer so that he or she is rest
mm,
assured that food is
mm.
getting cooked at the in the
Got it.
right manner and reaching to me in the right manner.
Got it. So, I have an interesting question on, Ashish handles brand and marketing, you handle sales and distribution, Tanu handles product and customer experience. Uh, how has been the experience like in terms of reacting to this situation with your, in respect to a specific function? For example, how quickly can a product or a customer experience improve or move, or how agile or nimble it can be in these situations? How can marketing react very quickly to all that has happened? How can a sales and distribution channel react to it? I just wanted to understand, Tanu. Let's start from you on how have you managed it, and how has the product and experience vertical reacted to all of this, and what were the challenges or opportunities which you capitalized on during this time?
So yeah, it has been tough. So overall, see, product has to work in conjunction with a lot of teams, right? So BigBasket is very operational heavy. So whatever changes we make have to be communicated to the field. The agent training has to take place. So we launched contactless deliveries, and contactless deliveries was conceptualized and very quickly run from the product end, and then we spent still significant issues came when we were launching it in the field, because the agent trainings were being done very, very quickly with the kind of other pressures that was going on. Apart from that, other thing that happened for us was the refund. So BigBasket has always processed refunds for customer order cancellations to the BB wallet. And it has been fine till now, because most customers are our repeat customers. Grocery is a 3 times a month purchase activity, and overall paying from wallet has been very easy and efficient for most customers. And suddenly we had a lot of new customers on the site, and when their orders got cancelled, they could not place the same amount of trust on us to say that, okay, fine, my money is safe, and I will probably get the groceries worth my money later. And we had to work with all our payment partners to process refunds very quickly. So first of all, there was no product support, so a lot of manual activity and manual reconciliation went into it, and people worked sleepless nights on that. And the payment partners didn't have the ability to process a lot of these things in bulk, because this is not something that is done in for like lakhs of orders. We were canceling 2 lakh. We had cancelled 2 lakh orders by the time we tried to solve this problem. So so this was again something that the team worked on, and it was a challenge, but now we are over it. We are able to do it on a day-by-day basis. We have made a policy immediately saying that all cancellations will go back to people's original source of payments and not to their wallets. So so many such things happened. Even now, we then faced a lot of flack in terms of slots not being available. So that was another problem that we are trying to solve now with looking at how do we make sure that it's more equal. It's not a fastest finger first game. And when people are coming to at least book a slot and say, okay, fine, I don't have a slot now, but I will be assured of a slot 2 days later. So we're working towards creating a solution around some of those problems. So teams have to be nimble around these things, and you can't plan for any of this.
Got it. I know it's been completely unprecedented. It's very interesting that you are facing a supply side challenge, and let me come to Ashish, where we are probably facing a demand side challenge and a trust and safety issue. So just wanted to understand from you, Ashish, that in these times as a marketer, as a brand head, how do you basically think about communication where everything is so sensitive, and this is completely unprecedented. There is no precedent of how people have reacted to such situations. So it'll be good to understand from you on how you as the brand head have sort of navigated this whole situation from a customer communication point of view.
Sure. So I think it ideally needs to, you can't operate in isolation, right? I think it's very good if you as a company and the entire organization and the entire team comes together and aligns on certain clear principles in terms of how they're going to operate. Quite often these principles aren't stated, but I think it is good to put them out there and make sure that everyone's clear what you're going to do. For instance, it's quite easy to be tempted by being opportunistic in this point in time. And if you lay down a principle saying that that's not how we're going to operate and we're going to be extremely respectful of everything that's going down and not try and be opportunistic, I think it makes sure that people are aligned across the board, right? And honestly, in any large company and brand, there is just so much of stuff happening. It could be a product copy that's going onto a customer support page. It could be an SMS that you're sending out. It could be an email. It could be a digital ad you're putting out. So there's just so much happening that's extremely hard to control without aligning on certain principles. Quite often, and at least in the case of Swiggy, I'd say we are fortunate to have, as in a good history of being extremely disciplined in terms of how we react to such crises, and as in keeping consumers and keeping consumers' sentiment first and foremost. The second thing that we've done is for anything that we kind of put out, we also make sure that there is enough of a sounding board around that, right? As in, again, when any person who develops communication, as in listens to it on their own, there's often an echo chamber of of it sounding and feeling great. But if
mm,
you're able to kind of like run it through enough of a diverse set of people within the company, you get much
mm,
stronger, clearer feedback. Because
mm,
I think one key challenge is making sure that you're not tone deaf, you're not opportunistic, and a lot of brands
mm,
have kind of like erred on the wrong side of that.
mm, mm,
The last principle I would say is to make sure that you're actually genuinely helping consumers during this point in time. So
mm,
making sure that you
mm,
leverage your power as a brand, your community of
mm,
users to help people. As in, for us, Hope Not Hunger, which is a initiative, as in similar to, for
mm,
instance, what IIMKAN is also trying to do, a
mm,
COVID relief initiative for people who don't have access to healthy,
mm,
hygienic food, was one such thing
mm,
where we were able to actually do good by people in need as well.
mm. Mm. No, no, I completely agree that the sensitivity with which companies have to react now, in terms of the empathy they have to show, in terms of the character of the company and the brand. I think that is something which new age consumers really care for, and this is not something which was sort of evident earlier. You could not care too much about how you're reacting, or how as a corporate entity your personality is. You can be very opportunistic and still be very profitable in large business. But I think now, given the current situation, every company will have to focus on how do they basically behave in this situation, which is more empathetic towards all parts of the ecosystem, from customers to suppliers to your distributors. Everyone you have to take care of, and not just of yourself. I think that's what Ashish is trying to say, and which also means that for all of you who've been watching this in your own companies, very interesting point Ashish made is that internally you have to align. I think the biggest thing which happens in these moments is a lot of miscommunication and misalignment between the stakeholders within the company itself. And given we are all working from home, it is another set of challenges for us to over communicate and sort of align. So Yogesh, from your perspective, I'm sure there have been many challenges in terms of operational challenges of actually first getting the kitchen up and running, getting people who have fled to their villages, etc. So you, as a VP of sales and distribution, specifically in your vertical, what are the kind of things you sort of did, and any specific insights or learnings you'd like to share for the larger audience?
Yeah. So I think, as Ashish has mentioned, roles and responsibilities kind of blurred, right? Everyone, it's kind of a task force approach which every organization has to take when the crisis of such magnitude arrives. To be honest, first few days we were blank, right? We don't know, what is happening. Circular after circular coming from the government. You don't know. After 3 hours, some clarification came. Every city and every department, police is saying something else. So, from an operation standpoint, we were blank. What to do and how to start. Then I think it started getting stabilized a little bit. But then another challenge is how you get the raw material. If raw material is available, then how you ship it to the nearest kitchen. So
Mm,
there are a lot of challenge where you have to work with the entire ecosystem, like
mm,
manufacturer of raw material, then logistics provider, then your own employees. If you
mm, mm,
get the kitchen open, how the employee or how the employee
mm,
will travel to the kitchen because public transport is
mm,
shut. How they're gonna
mm,
come? Then the another
mm,
set of challenge comes when few cities have few passes, right? Then you go to the authorities, get the passes, and passes are in limited
mm,
supplies and all. I think there's lot bunch of uncertainty around it. So I think
mm,
probably we took about few days to figure out what to start, what
mm,
not to start, where to start, where not to start. And
mm,
suddenly there is an you have to be very sensitive about the safety and hygiene you are maintaining and how you are communicating. Every
mm,
employee has to be checked after two hours. Their temperature has to be checked. Some medical examination has to happen, and then you have
mm,
to communicate this thing to a customer. If I communicate to customer that whosoever touched your food, from the
mm,
chef, from the person who handed over, from the delivery person, and
mm,
kind of you make him sure that whatever food is reaching to you is relatively safe. We
got
also
it.
imagined the restaurant industry, that how it's gonna look like, because probably we part of that ecosystem. So I think
Mm,
restaurant of the post-COVID era for some time will look more like hospital than the restaurant, even if they open. The tables
mm,
would be half. There'll be sanitizer across. There'll be mask. There'll be gloves. So I think the
yeah,
restaurant industry will change at least for till the time the vaccine
yeah,
arrives and all. So a
yeah,
restaurant which looks like a hospital, how intimidating it would be, which means probably there is a more probably I think light at the end of tunnel for the food delivery, that can you create that same amount of experience in
Got it.
the home of people, and probably I think that would revive faster than probably going out and socializing.
Got it. Got it. Got it. So, Tanu, for you, let's talk a little bit about the future and not the impact on any new specific opportunities which you see are going to become really big given the change in behavior from a customer point of view and obviously the industry. So, Tanu, for BigBasket, is there something which has changed drastically in terms of how new opportunities have come up, or is it business as usual for you because you have already underserving the demand as compared to before?
Uh, so on some aspects, it would be about being more efficient with the business. But there have been new opportunities as well. So we have a BB Instant business. The BB Instant business now will take a new shape. Earlier, we were envisioning it as a vending machine business. Now it's this crisis has elevated that business to an unmatched store business level, right? So now if you put 7 vending machines together, it becomes a mini grocery store, which can, give you more items than it was planned before, than just a vending machine. So that is one opportunity which we are really excited about. The other thing, like Yogesh mentioned, is the meal kit. So BigBasket has also previously experimented with meal kits, and that is something I believe is another exciting area. It was earlier probably a bit ahead of its time, and now create a restaurant right experience at home. This is something that would start gaining traction. So that's another thing. The whole healthy eating trend has been underway for some time, and I think COVID will just fuel into that still more, and we will see people still making healthier food choices. So organic foods demands will be higher, and so on. So those are the things that we are looking at right now.
Got it, got it. So a lot of inflection points is what I can understand. For Swiggy, it is moving from food tech to exploring grocery. For Rebel Food, it's probably thinking about meal kits and giving a in-home experience, which is as good as restaurants. For BigBasket, again, very similar things. So I think never in history this has happened that businesses which have been going at a certain pace are suddenly looking at very new opportunities. In fact, competing for it. All of us are competing for the same set of new opportunities, and I think it depends on who does it better, who does it faster to actually capitalize on that opportunity. So very interesting times. I think let's move from thanks a lot. I think a lot of insights on the industry perspective. I think for the young participants in the webinar, let's talk a little bit about specifically with respect to your function and how should they basically build their own careers, and any advice from you guys on for these guys on to build their careers. So let me start with Ashish. I think people are interested in brand and marketing, and given you have been at the forefront of very large companies and leading brand and marketing functions for them, if you could talk a little bit about how does a typical day look like, how do you plan your overall calendar in terms of a quarterly, half yearly, or a yearly calendar, so that people would understand what does it actually entail, and any inputs or advice you have for people who want to basically take up marketing and branding in new age consumer startups.
Sure. Let me talk a little bit. I mean, days nowadays are obviously quite odd, but in general, I think my day would. Let me talk a little bit about my team structure as well, right? So, I think a lot of brand teams across different companies, we have essentially got one vertical which looks after all of our media, brand communication, plus research. So that's one vertical. We've got another, given the nature of our business, we have a very dispersed business. So we've got one vertical which looks after what we call regional marketing. So what we're doing in different parts of the country per se, which also looks after promotions marketing. Previously, there were obviously lots of different promos that were running across the board. So this was one more vertical. We had one which was looking after social media per se. So that's one. We have a creative studio, which is a almost 20 member creative studio. So that's another vertical within that. We have new service lines and new brands. A lot of the new categories we're creating, like Genie, stores. So all of that kind of sit there. So those are the different legs of as in the overall brand marketing team. There's a lot of close interfacing which happens with as in separate team within marketing, which we call repeat and loyalty and performance. So they run a lot of our new user acquisition, re-engagement campaigns per se. right? So that's how we structured. What my day would typically look like will, so there's going to be a combination of three different types of priorities. One is from the overall Swiggy brand, which when we kind of like talk about Swiggy, people still kind of think about food. But when we think about what are our like big priorities in terms of growth opportunities within food, what are we really going to be doing on that front? That will typically involve a lot of interaction engagement with internally in terms of figuring out what are our insights, what do we understand about emerging consumer segments, working very closely with a lot of our as in business stakeholders in terms of products we might be building for them, working with our agency partners. So a lot of agency meetings quite often in terms of figuring out, okay, if this is who the consumer is, this is who the offering is, how are we going to communicate to them? We have a fairly, as in if you saw the last couple of years, we had a few marquee properties like IPL, for instance, that we went after. So depending on that season, there's obviously a lot of focus on that. Outside of that, the second would be, so this is food, which is essentially like a cash cow in a way, or a large business is one area of focus. But a fair amount of time in terms of thinking about what are we doing with respect to growing some of these currently fledgling businesses like Genie and stores, which have seen initial product market fit, but we have to really figure out what their growth strategies are. Right? So there it's almost working like a much smaller startup, figuring out as in what are our different growth levers, as in literally looking at like a campaign level, what happened on this particular campaign in terms of outcomes and metrics. So that's the different spectrum. I think advice for, sorry, just one last piece in terms of advice for people who are kind of like getting into marketing would be, as in no surprises, but as in the world of marketing also is changing, a lot more focus in terms of growth versus as in a lot of like erstwhile marketing roles are now looked at as growth roles. So important to kind of like have a holistic view across product, across marketing, across marketing, tech and automation. So that would be as in extremely important in the next few years.
Yeah, completely agreed, Ashish, and I'll just like to add to it that marketing is becoming less of a marketing and more of a growth and culture driver in large companies and even for small companies at this stage, where marketing is evolved into an intersection of product, technology, data, marketing, and CMOs and even brand and marketing managers are not just responsible for advertising and communication, which is the most common understanding or definition of marketing as we call it. In fact, in a lot of companies I've heard that they call marketing as comms, which is communication. So I think communication is just one part of it. So for people who are trying to enter marketing now, I think focus on a holistic understanding of a business is very important, because CMOs becoming CEOs is going to be much more common now versus only CEOs, COOs and CFOs becoming CEOs. Earlier CMOs were not considered for leading a company, but I think it has been changing across the world. So very, very interesting and exciting times for marketing and branding sort of careers. So for all of you, I think if you want to reach out to Ashish or me, and talk a little bit about any career advice, I think it'll be good to talk to you. You can reach out to us and we'll probably drop our emails and phone numbers later. Yogesh, again, completely orthogonal and sort of brothers of marketing, which is sales and distribution, and at the same time, very, very operational, very hardworking function. How do you see this function? What does your day look like? And people who want to get into sales and distribution, what is your advice for those people?
Yeah, so I think as Ashish said that probably they work with lot to generate the demand. Now it's the sales side to fulfill that demand. So that's what a sales side should do, and I think that's where the distribution becomes a quite handy, because your product has to be available at all possible touch point where customer is looking for it, and I think you have to make sure that day in and day out. You should be visible at a right place at the right time for the consumer, and for that you need to work a lot with operations or with every function. I think for people who are relatively less creative like me, I think that's where this operational juggernaut and managing that becomes quite interesting. That probably can you manage so many things at a time, while there is a number delivery, right? That comes with sales. That comes with every function, but sales is a lot about daily and hourly. And when I came to Rebel, it's about hourly, right? How much we did till 3 p.m., how much we did till 7 p.m. So I think probably if it excites you, being under the constant goal and constant supervision, and you want numbers speaks your story, then probably I think sales and distribution is where probably you can focus. Yeah, it's relatively operationally and execution intensive without a doubt, because you are interacting with the customers, and customers have a different point of view, while you may have internal challenge to service that point of view. So you have to figure out a middle path always. So that means negotiation becomes handy if you are in sales role. I think in my opinion, the way I see it, sales is where the entire business comes together, right? Finally, the rubber meets the road. Till the time everything is under the plan, and everything you are thinking about something, but sales is where actually customer pays the dollar for the service which you get. And that's where you are always in constant touch with customer, and hence constant touch with marketing, that how we are messaging to the customer, and how's the feedback coming. So I think for people who wish to make career in sales, and I think when I was in IIM Kozhikode, sales was not considered to be something which people want to make their career. I mean, because it's a different connotation when you start your career in sales, right? Because you have to do all dirty things, and and then you suddenly then you start thinking. But I think over a period of time, probably you start enjoying it. You start enjoying your day filled with numbers left, right, and center. And I think that's where those who are folks who are less creative, those who cannot think more on the creative domain or ahead of the curve, probably I think they comes in the sales, and they generally follow the curve which marketing is creating.
No, I think it's wrong of you to say that people are less creative, because I think especially and you sort of underplayed yourself. I think creativity from a execution perspective is something which is extremely important, and I personally am not good at that, for example. And I believe that execution eats, just like culture eats strategy for breakfast, I also believe execution beats strategy for breakfast. So I think the most important function to actually deliver is sales, distribution, operations, which is the foundation of every business. So I think just adding a little bit to it, anyone who is a hustler is great with understanding people, talking to people, getting shit done, kind of a personality is something which you guys should definitely, and most importantly, focus on these functions, and could lead to a very, very fruitful career, in fact. Tanu, from your perspective, product is a very sort of, if I may call it, a very new thing for India, per se. I think, very few people are real product managers in India, and people don't even understand at this stage on what does it mean to be a product manager. Are you just a common problem solver? Do you require tech skills for it? How do you grow in a product domain? Is India the right place to be a product manager? I think a lot of it's a very evolving and so to say the sexiest sort of field right now. So would be good to understand from you on what does product management entail, and how can one think about getting into product management and building a solid career out of it.
Okay, so see, product management overall has been very different for different industries also. So how a product manager role is shaped across different companies is different, and it I think varies a lot between industries. And I can talk to you in terms of the consumer internet company, where a product management role actually lies at the center of the business, customer, and technology. So although it is said that okay, you are the voice of the customer in the team. So yes, you are the voice of the customer, but you also have to bring in the reasoning of the business into the fray, and the execution capability of the tech. So you have to understand all these three aspects of and being able to arrive at a solution. After that, it is a lot about again about stakeholder management, about selling that idea and getting buy-ins from a lot of people who directly or indirectly don't have to buy into that and can continue their life without worrying too much about some of the things that you're doing. So it is about again, it's about selling some of these things, and so that forms the core skills. Of course, the basic problem solving, ability to again look at numbers and make sure that you can answer why you are doing something. What is the ROI impact? What is the customer impact? All of those things are the basic requirements to being a product manager in consumer internet companies. Data is everywhere, right? All of us are sitting on huge amounts of data. So to be able to make sense out of that is the base requirement. I think that is one of the change, right, from the old world, from working in FMCG to working in internet companies now, because you know that if you've run one campaign, what is the actual impact that that campaign has created, and to be able to tie into that story and the effectiveness of that thing is become very important now. So that is the product management from as in I understand. I told you in the beginning that I made many mistakes while I was trying to get into this. So the basic thing is just that talking to people, understanding what the company is about. I think we sometime back had a session about I think changing careers. No, the other one. So one where Uma told about how do you make how do you find your dream company. So you have to find the company, you have to understand what everything is, understand its business. Again, it is about understanding that business and being able to translate it into the product requirements for that. So those are the skills that anybody looks for, that I would look for while hiring. And yeah. So in terms of team structure at BigBasket, I can talk about that. So product team at BigBasket is largely in 4 verticals. We work with the DC, which is our warehouse teams who look at the products, who look at the entire the stocks, stock management and stock supplies, and DC handling, warehouse management aspect of things. We have the last mile delivery team, who, as the name suggests, they look into the routing and the delivery aspect of things. Then there is a customer experience team, looking at the customer side of things, which is what I handle. And we have the design teams. The design team sits at the center and work with all of these 3 teams overall.
Got it.
So that is the team structure at BigBasket for product management.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Tanu. I think it's very interesting how when all of us were in the campus, we had never thought of these kind of companies which we are working for. The roles and the JDs were very, very different. I remember we used to talk about VIP, Raymond, PNGs, and HULs, and consulting and finance, and all of this is so different from what we were taught at campus, and it's just been very exciting. Just from my point of view, I think for people who want to get into, so I've dabbled with a lot of stuff from marketing to digital to business to category to revenue, etc. I just wanted to say that the new age companies give you that opportunity to move from even from one domain to domain within the company itself. So, for example, moving from marketing to business strategy to, let's say, revenue and category management, etc., is possible in these companies because they are very dynamic and flexible in nature. So for all of you who are thinking about starting a career in any one of this, I think all of these are interrelated, from marketing to product to business strategy to revenue to category to sales. I think you can explore your own mojo, you figure out what is it that fits you once you get into the company. I'll give an example of Ola. An average person who works in Ola for 2 to 3 years, sorry, not an average person, a person who has worked in Ola for 2 to 3 years would have, on an average, worked in about 5 or 6 roles in 3 years. And for people who have been around for 4-5 years, have probably taken up more than 10 roles. So I think things change overnight. It is highly uncertain. Today you are taking care of one product. Tomorrow you are probably taking care of something else if a crisis arrives. So very exciting space to be in. I think that's it. I think thanks a lot, all of you. It was very enlightening and very interesting session, even for me personally, and I'm sure for others as well, to understand so much about different industries. I think what we can do is a lot of people have sent in some interesting questions, and I'll pick some of them. Probably we don't have time for all of them. We'll see if we can take all of them. So the first question is for Ashish, where Saloni asks that how can a customer be satisfied about safety and hygiene when it comes to restaurants? And even Yogesh, you can also chip in later. Is some restaurants like that of Zorawar Kalra are saying that they will have live stream is one of the solutions. So from a Swiggy perspective, how do you take care of this trust and safety? And from a Rebel Foods perspective, how do you take care of trust and safety? It will be good to understand very quickly.
Sure. I think the challenge for us is when you have run your own kitchens. I think customers have a lot. You have a lot more control in terms of what you can do. I think the way we've been thinking about it is a lot of it comes down to what kind of technology-based solutions can we really put in place in order to run about. As in, we have over 1.5 lakh kitchens who used to operate on the platform. Obviously, that number has come down a bit because they aren't all operating. But how do you really deploy technology? And that's where I think the role of product also has increased significantly in terms of finding the right places in which you want interventions. The way we think about it is also there's very specific touch points at which consumers are or safety becomes tangible for consumers, and those are touch points we are looking to focus on. And that kind of like varies across things like temperature testing for restaurants and how do we enable that using technology, temperature testing for delivery partners. We now have something where every delivery partner has to take a selfie, where using ML we are able to figure out whether he's wearing a mask or not with high degree of accuracy. So those are different things that we are doing, but I'm sure as in Yogesh will have slightly different answers where the role of process will be a lot more important when it comes to kitchen. So I'll let Yogesh take the rest of it.
Yogesh, will be good to understand from you also.
Yeah, so I think one thing is for sure that you have to over communicate now. Essentially, what we have to talk to customer is he has every right, and we have to make sure that he gets all the information on the raw material, where are being procured, how they are being shipped, and how they are being made. So I think temperature traceability of the raw material also becomes very important. But till the time it picks up from the manufacturer, how it is traveled to the restaurant, and then whosoever does the food, how you can communicate the authenticity and probably the safety and hygiene of that person. Now there are different methods. Probably I think with working with partners and working with everyone in the industry, we can make it. Probably live feed is an answer. Probably temperature is an answer. Probably medical reports by a medical practitioner every 6 days is an answer. Probably the food testing, if can you put a laser gun on the food and then figure out with artificial intelligence which tells you which are the product which may be susceptible to something. Like, for an interesting thing is we have a Chinese brand which is Mandarin Oak, and we see the substantial decline on that brand. I mean, suddenly the consumer habits have changed towards one particular brand because they don't want to have this food. Veg non-veg split has changed drastically. Pre-COVID, the veg non-veg split was different. Post-COVID, the veg non-veg split is very different. So a lot of consumer habits are changing, and probably we as a restaurant partner and probably Ashish as a direct touching with the consumer, we have to work closely so that we reassure and we communicate to the customer as much as possible about how we are ensuring.
Got it. Tanu, there's an interesting question for you that what is the opportunity in B2B grocery as a segment serving mom and pop stores, given that they are going to be at the center of hyperlocal delivery now? They will need a lot of supplies. So does that opportunity change post-COVID? How big that is? What is BigBasket doing about it? If you could just talk a little bit about that.
So for B2B, BigBasket already is supplying to a lot of the Kirana stores. We have a vertical that works to supply to the Kiranas. And I think we'll continue to work on that. In terms of opportunity changing, I don't see it would. I don't see how it would significantly impact how we are looking at it from today onwards. The business may have more potential to grow from here, but don't see it changing per se too much.
Got it. Next is a question from Chirantan and Abhijit both. So Chirantan asks that because the food delivery guys are on high placed at high risk because of the nature of work. Ashish, this is for you. Are you trying to purchase health insurance for them? What are you doing for the delivery force so that they are not at such a high risk and they get significant reward for what they're doing?
So even before the COVID, as in cases started, all our delivery partners are essentially part of health insurance. Thankfully, in India, health insurance isn't possibly as prohibitively expensive. So we had already covered all of them. We have bought a additional insurance for delivery partners who are dependent on Swiggy full time, which is called income protection insurance. In case of any positive cases, they get 14 days of coverage to protect their loss of income. We've got a relief fund that we started largely with contributions from employees and Swiggy itself and founders, which is being used towards in case their family members, etc., are also kind of like tested positive. We are encouraging tipping a lot. I think it's important. It's also given the times, they're obviously kind of like taking some amount of risk, so it's important to encourage consumers to tip. So yeah, there are different things we're doing, and yes, we are paying for health insurance and income protection insurance as of now.
Got it. Cool. I think that's it. Thanks a lot, Yogesh, Ashish, Tanu, for such interesting insights, and even meeting you guys over Zoom, not Zoom, whatever, StreamYard, and for all the others who are watching us, thanks a lot for attending the session. Hope it was of help to you and was insightful enough. And we'll look forward to talking to you guys maybe sometime later. Meanwhile, if you guys have any questions for us in terms of building careers or understanding a little bit more about the industry, you can reach out to us on LinkedIn and we can probably connect. And I think I'd lastly like to really thank IIMKAN for organizing this. I think this is the first alumni session, or rather knowledge sharing session, in 10 years I've attended or sort of given after passing out. So I think COVID has also brought about this in a very interesting way on how knowledge sharing is taking a new shape, and learning and education is becoming important. And I think we should do this more often. In fact, I just realized that I don't even know what people are doing from our batches, and would be interesting to learn what are they doing in their respective industries. So great. Thanks a lot. I think we're done here.
Thanks, Anshul.
Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.